How's it going, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. It's time for Nick at Night, my weekly non-spoiler comic book review show. Just got done reading all my books. Let's go over each and every one of them coming up next. Welcome back. So let's get into the books I read this week. I'm going to go ahead and put my grading bar up now. As I go through the books, I'm going to put the cover for that book on the grading bar so you know how they stack up against each other. We're going to go over into Marvel first. We're going to go into one of my favorite Marvel books continuously, week after week or month after month. Every time it comes out, we have Jason Aaron on Punisher. This is issue number 7. This is a continuation of when Daredevil actually catches up with the Punisher. The Punisher is basically named like this demon god, essentially, for the Hand right now. And so we're understanding his struggle with that. He's getting something back from the Hand for doing this. It has something to do with the resurrection protocols in a way, not like the Krakoa ones or anything like that, but like the Hand's ability to resurrect people. And so they're kind of dangling this carrot in front of him to play along, but he's kind of going in and out of that little like that deal a little bit. He's trying to break away, but he just can't quite get out of it. So he kind of like embraces it from time to time. So it is pretty cool. Daredevil is actually showing up in this issue. So that means he's actually a little bit ahead of the main Daredevil run, but their interaction is awesome. It's just what you thought it would be. He's just kind of trying to snap him out of this. He's understanding how deep Frank Castle is in this little agreement that they have. And yeah, it's just awesome. We do have Ares towards the end here. He's really pissed off about how the last interaction with Punisher went. And so he's kind of coming with all the forces now as well. And we get a lot of kind of flashbacks from his wife's perspective, from Frank Castle's wife's perspective, about what life was like when Frank came back to the war, how he was kind of like a stranger, how he was acting weird. So the story does bounce back and forth between that flashback and what's going on in more present time. So really, really amazing book. Loving this one. It's one of my probably top 3 Marvel books out right now. Highly recommended. Check this one out. The next Marvel book we're going to get into is Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman on Hulk issue number 10. And I'm kind of losing it here a little bit with this book. It's not really exciting to me anymore. This has another small first appearance in it, I guess, of this big giant Hulk kind of version here. He's basically landed on a planet, Hulk. It was affected by the big gamma bomb that went off a few issues ago, maybe in the early issues of this Hulk run. Time works differently. This place evolved, and a bunch of Hulks kind of sprung up, and they idolized the Bruce Banner Hulk. He arrives, and they're kind of like showing him their society, right? And so it's okay. The art is great. I mean, it's Ryan Ottley. It's going to be amazing. It's fun. The story is just not really doing it for me that much. We get some like childhood flashbacks and things like that are supposed to be relevant to what's actually going on here. But it's kind of losing its novelty a little bit. I don't really like this direction we're going in. I don't care about Hulk Planet and what's going on. It's just going to turn into a giant like slugfest here any time now. And I mean, our Hulk's going to probably win, right? It's not like he's going to lose all of a sudden to these folks. So, you know, it's going to be okay. We learned something kind of shocking, some revelation about our main Hulk in here too. So we're going to see how that plays out in the future. It's awesome. The art is really cool. The overall story is okay. I don't know. What are you guys thinking about Hulk right now? I was on the Hulk bandwagon in the early days, but like I'm kind of fading since the big battle with like Thor and all that stuff. Let me know what you guys are thinking about Hulk down below. Next Marvel book we have is Predator issue number 4 from Ed Brisson. This is actually a fun little read. It's not a Predator-centered book, although it does feature this girl here who's actually on a revenge mission for a predator that actually attacked her family, killed her parents, and presumably the society that she lived with. It's like this mobile community, right? Or colony that went around. So she's on this big revenge mission. Her sidekick is this artificial intelligence spaceship that her society used to use, her colony used to use, and she's been using the technology on that ship to survive and like hop around and hunt down these other predators. And so she's just on this kind of resupply run right now, and she comes across this signal that a bunch of predator ships are tracking her now, and it's basically her battle to get away from all them. We do get an awesome close-up encounter with another predator here, and the art style is really cool. What they do with here is really amazing. I do like all the carnage and the gore and the line work and the shading and everything. It seems like they do a really good job there. I think the overall story is kind of like lacking some kind of depth, although it is going in interesting places. It's a fun read. It's a book that I enjoy reading. It's not a book that I look at on the stack and go, I got to read Predator this month. Man, that's kind of a bummer. It's not that kind of book at all. It's pretty simple. It's pretty fast paced. It's easy to get through. It reads kind of like a movie in a way. It doesn't read like a story or like a comic. It's hard to differentiate those two sometimes, but it is a fun read. It is fun. Could I take it or leave it? I could take it or leave it, although it is leaning into the fun side. Let me know if you're reading it down below. The last Marvel book we read this week was Secret Invasion #1 from Ryan North. This was on my hot seat. Did not quite know if I was going to get this one. I got to the shop. It's a little bit of a light week, and I saw this cover, and I'm like, well, I'm at least going to pick it up for the cover, and I just went ahead and read it, and I'm actually glad that I did, because this is one of those stories where there's just so many little layers to it. It's really interesting to kind of see it play out. You think you're reading one story, and then it kind of flips the script towards the end. And so at least it kept my attention. The art style is pretty interesting. They do a decent job here, but it could knock it up a little bit on the art side. It is pretty dark, and again, you think you're reading one story, but it does shift towards the end into a whole different direction. And I'm pretty excited to see where it goes from there. I have my hints. The last couple of pages, they kind of insinuate something is going on and somebody's affected. I have my hints about who it might be based on some of the covers and things like that we've seen so far. I'm wondering if that's just like a red herring. But yeah, at least it's a pretty fun, kind of like a whodunit or what's really real and everything. So yeah, I actually had a good time reading this one. Let me know what you guys thought. I haven't read anything about Secret Invasion in the past. I know it's like an older thing. Haven't read any of those yet, but I'm liking what I'm reading so far. So I might need to put more on my pull list. What do you guys think? All right, we're going to jump into DC. We're going to start with Poison Ivy issue #6 from G. Willow Wilson, and we have Takara on the art. In fact, we have several people on the art, not just Takara. Depending on which page you're on. I will say the art is probably the best thing about this entire series. It is absolutely gorgeous. And even when there's other artists on it, they do some insanely crazy stuff, man. Just insane stuff. I'm really loving all the different textures on here, the colors, the line work, everything about it. It's like so psychedelic and surreal. It's just great, man. You can like feel the pages. It's incredible. So the art is awesome. As far as the overall run, I did enjoy the run overall. It's actually going to continue on. I think 7 and 8 are actually available for like pre-order right now. So the story will continue, and we were right. She is writing a letter, obviously, back to Harley. We do get a little Harley at the end here, but basically where we left off was we had Poison Ivy taking on Woodrow, and basically he was just kind of overpowering her using his abilities, which he says he accepted, and so therefore he's stronger than she is. She kind of overcomes that, uses her hallucinating, the Batman, she's hallucinating to kind of pull herself out of that situation, and she actually pulls through. But at what cost, right? So we're going to be exploring that as we go forward in here. So pretty interesting story overall. It has a couple down issues here and there. Art was crazy good. Story was good enough. It's continuing on. I'm not going to drop it because I thought it was pretty interesting so far. Let me know if you guys read it. All right, continuing with DC, we have Batman 129 from Chip Zdarsky and Jorge Menendez. And man, this Batman Zur-En-Arrh, I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. First off, this cover is absolutely gorgeous. So that one is amazing. I'm liking that one a lot. But basically, this is, again, a high-paced action comic right here. We have Batman's, pretty much his fail-safe protocol has kicked into place here. We learned that since Alfred's been gone, Alfred's been kind of maintaining this just to make sure that it doesn't kick off unnecessarily. And so since Alfred is gone, fail-safe was activated. And fail-safe right now is ruthless. It thinks just like Batman, knows all of his plans, knows all of his dark secrets, thinks like him, way faster, way more durable. It's meant to take Batman out if Batman ever goes rogue. So that's the kind of situation we're in right now. He's completely locked down Gotham. Most of the people that have tried to help, even some of the Justice League members, have been taken out. And so Batman's actually recuperating right now with Arthur Curry, just kind of getting his bearings again. And he's kind of warning Arthur. He's like, listen, Failsafe is probably going to figure out where I am, and he's going to come for Atlantis next. So you better figure this out and help me defend while I go into the next step of my plan right here and try to get Gotham back. So we do see how that plays out in here. It is pretty exciting to see it happen. This book is just full of little twists and turns. You didn't quite see a lot of these things happening. I can't predict where the story's going because it's so outrageous. And that's what I love about Chip Zdarsky. He's really having a good time writing this book. And it shows. It shows. Again, the paper quality for some of these DC books, it has like this newspaper thickness and grit and like feel to it the colors on these kinds of books, they really pop. It's not that shiny, glossy, just like razor thin kind of paper. This paper is actually really nice, and I'm loving that a lot of DC books are doing that. So props to them for doing that. Man, this book kind of takes you in all kinds of places, and it's really amazing. I'll show you some of the Arthur Curry stuff in here. It's pretty cool to see him in action and not being used as like a side character. He's actually got a meaningful part in here, so it is fun to see. Again, if you're into those Batman stories that just, they don't take a pause. They're just blasting forward. It's unpredictable, crazy good art, a lot of like callbacks from earlier stuff in the Batman lore. This book is for you. Check it out. It's one of the best. The last DC book we read this week was Sword of Azrael, issue number 4 from Dan Waters. And this book is incredible. If you're not reading this book, I highly recommend this one. The art style, it took me a minute to get over it because it does have a little bit of an anime-ish tone to it. I don't really know the best way to describe it. Let me try to show you something in here from the art so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. This is a good example. You have these like action scenes right here where it's just kind of like chaos and like arms flashing around. And then you have like these darker sets as well. It's not really an anime-ish kind of thing. I just don't know the best way of describing it. It is different than some other books. It has like a humor or playfulness to it, but it's a really dark and gritty book at the same time. But this one's all about the exploration of the origin of Azrael, how he got started. We meet some of these like crusaders in the beginning who have this kind of like holy technology to build warriors with, right? To build like the next big saint. And so it's actually used in the wrong way over here. And we get a little bit of an origin story of our hero in the first few pages over here. And I don't really quite know what his origin is otherwise. So I'm going to take this as that's what happened. Maybe it was a retelling and I just don't know about it. But we basically have our Azrael here. He's actually exploring a lot of missing people in this one little town, this remote town. Takes him to a volcano. He finds a monster, and that monster has a very similar origin than he does, and he's kind of regenerating himself with the bodies of the people that he's kidnapping. So it's like a weird Frankenstein, like a demonic Frankenstein kind of a thing here, and it's basically just a big battle between those two, and it is awesome, and so that's been a lot of fun. The ending of the story, we're kind of going back on our mission again. We were on a mission to save this younger girl who's going through some like possession and brainwashing right now to kind of be another Azrael in a way. So we're trying to get back in that storyline, but we get derailed again towards the end of this with a character that I haven't seen since like early Catwoman days, not early Catwoman days, the Ron V Catwoman time frame in that area. So we're getting a really interesting character from that era being introduced in the back of this book. And so I'm excited for that, but you know, we're on number 4 right now of 6 issues. We only have 2 issues to wrap this up, and we're like just now getting back on our quest. I don't know how they're going to wrap it up in 2 issues. That's got me a little bit worried. Overall, it's a cool book, though. Let me know what you think. Next, we're going to go into Boom Studios with a new number 1 called Behold Behemoth. This one's actually awesome. It's from Tate Brombell and Nick Robles. I don't know anything about this creative team, but damn, they put together a crazy good story in here. It's actually a story you don't quite understand what's happening when you read it. It's got this level of complexity to it. It's flashing back and forth. We're following these kids as they're growing up. One of them has died later in life, and it's kind of starting off in this funeral scene, touching back on what they were doing when they were kids. There's obviously some like physical threat in their life that they're trying to overcome, and that this one kid who actually passes later in life is the guy that kind of steps up and helps the younger kid kind of get through it. So there's a little bit of a dependency or some kind of relationship growing up in there, and which is a cool thing to explore. The art in here is crazy awesome. Let me try to find you something in here that kind of showcases what that looks like. Something really nuts. You do have these weird like apocalyptic kind of scenes. It almost reminds me of when you're reading The Ice House on the Lake. It always opens up with like in the future and everything's destroyed. Everyone's wearing like a shroud and something. And then it goes into the more present day. So it does jump back and forth, and it really works because the art style in both times is just amazing. You know, as I was saying before, there's just something supernatural going on here. Our main character here, he is going around, he's helping with this police investigation now. There's this little girl who seems to have some kind of an ability of some kind, and he interacts with her and all hell kind of breaks loose. And there's a lot of weird like flash forwards or flashbacks or blackout moments where he kind of goes in this like trippy mindset, and you get that weird, crazy, psychedelic, just evil art. And so after that kind of stuff happens, it's like the world is completely changed. It's this weird, awesome mystery. I'm loving every minute of it. The art style in here is super cool. It's very intriguing. Lots of cool stuff going on. Man, check this one out. All right, we're going to go over to Dark Horse Comics next with Night of the Ghoul issue number 2 from Scott Snyder and Frank Avella. Man, this book is really awesome. If you liked issue number 1, this is a continuation of that. It's the same pace. It's the same craziness. And it's just a really, really fun book. What's really interesting about Scott Snyder in general is he just knows how to progress a book forward and when to do that. These books are extra long. They do have more pages, probably double than a standard comic, but at least the pacing doesn't feel like the book is extra long. You know what I mean? Like you're reading it, you're just having a good time. You're just eating up these pages. And then all of a sudden you're at the end and it felt like you just read 3 books, but you had a great time doing it. The story is interesting. They brought in a couple extra characters in here. They're bouncing back and forth between present day and in the past, and they're using all that information from the past to really reinforce what's happening in the present day. So that balance is really done beautifully in here. The particular issue really kind of solidifies everything that's going on, because in the beginning, it's basically just this ghost tale. You got this weird patient, this old man in a hospital bed. He apparently directed this evil film featuring this ghoul, and these big fans of his and of the movie in general just go to the hospital to kind of get information from them, but they certainly bite off more than they can chew with what they learn about the film and the origin, and is it actually real, and what's going on with the caregivers here too. They're pretty sick and twisted, and so it kind of brings more of that into light and answers some of the questions, I think, although I think there's probably going to be a couple twists and turns in here yet to be seen, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, man, if you like some spooky story kind of stuff, some like old time horror films mixed with reality, mixed with like a whodunit murder mystery kind of a thing, this is really awesome. I really recommend checking this one out. I want to say there's only one more issue after this, maybe, not entirely sure, but man, I wouldn't mind getting some more. Let me know if you read it. And the last book we read this week from Image Comics was Little Monsters from Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen. And this is actually a pretty fun issue. The last couple of issues have really turned it up a little bit for me in the excitement category. The beginning was interesting premise. It just kind of slowed down a little bit. Now it's picking it right back up. So that is pretty cool. Issue number 7 is a pretty decent issue. We do get a little bit of character spotlight with some of the characters in different issues. This one's mostly on Rami, I believe his name is. The one that doesn't speak, the one who just kind of points around and things like that. There's a little bit of not a little bit, there's a big like civil war going on with these vampire children right now. They actually found humans and they tasted blood. So like half of them were going insane trying to get more, and the other half were just trying to protect that. And so it's a pretty interesting battle between our group of kids here, or, you know, they're probably hundreds of years old at this point, but for all intents and purposes, our group of kids here, half of them are insane and half of them are trying to keep things together. But as I mentioned before, Rami's kind of the character of focus right here, the little mute boy. We do see him. He's actually the oldest of the group in here, and we get to see a little bit of a conversation with him and the presumably like the Dracula type character that turned all these other kids. They have an interesting conversation in here as well. He has a mission that he was kind of sent on to keep his fellow vampire kids safe and to follow the rules, and they're not exactly doing that right now, and he's the oldest and he's very strong, so I'm hoping that he kind of comes through to help save the day. The ending of this issue was pretty exciting. It reminded me a little bit of Underworld and how they keep certain vampires like asleep for generations after generations, right? And they resurrect one, they awaken one, and then one goes to sleep, and they kind of continue the legacy forward. I wonder if we're heading in that direction. Probably not, but the ending reminded me of that little room that they do that in anyway. So pretty interesting story overall. I would recommend it probably as a trade. I think this is a good trade weight. But it's an interesting story. Let me know if you're reading it. So guys, that will wrap it up for Nick at Night. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, go ahead and give me a like. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. And as a reminder, I put out comic book related content, not only here on YouTube, but also Instagram. So follow me. Links will be down below in the description. But as always, I appreciate you watching. Happy reading, and I'll see you guys down in the comments.